Hey, I'm Matthew Tringali, CEO and co-founder here at BetterWho.
And I'm Jay Berube, Chief Mistake Maker and co-founder here at BetterWho. And today we are going to be talking about why you should not be hiring a virtual assistant. And I know, Matthew, I didn't even tell you about this topic.
Okay,
yet.
yeah, all right.
So yeah, Matthew's probably surprised too. Virtual assistant, right? This is the word that is typically known out there in the world as hiring
I've heard of
global talent.
Yeah.
Virtual assistants are the task doers. They're the people that can check boxes, right? And we do placements of remote team members. Why, Matthew?
Yeah, because as I like to say, they're not virtual, they're real human beings, and they're not just assistants, they're full-fledged team members.
So true. So today, this is like really important stuff here. We're going to be talking about the problems and mistakes that you can get into and that people aren't thinking of.
So if you're thinking of hiring a remote team member, just like any team member you're going to be hiring, there's a lot to think about, right? There's job description, qualifications, culture fit, how much do I pay them, how do I onboard them, how do I train them, how do I retain them, hire, train, retain, right? We talk a lot about these things. Jay, where should we start?
First, I feel anxious already when you just start layering those things on.
Yeah.
That's not my role at the company.
Thank God.
Yeah, no kidding. And for most people, right, most property managers, we don't get into a business. We don't get into being an entrepreneur to be an HR manager. Typically, when we get into property management, we find that most people were either real estate agents before or investors, not HR managers.
Yeah, and this is true of any business. This is what I call the classic entrepreneurial journey, right? You start doing your thing, your craft, because you're good at it, right? So you started being a property manager, and because you're a good property manager, your business naturally grew, people wanted to hire you. But at some point, you stop being a property manager and you start being a business owner. And those same skills that made you a good property manager doesn't necessarily mean you're a good people manager, a good HR manager, a good finance manager. All of these things go into that. And so today we're just focused on that HR component.
And I think to get back to your question, if I remember the question, is that several years back, I started going to Tony Robbins events and changed my life. I say several, about 20. And one of the things I really picked up from that is when is now the right time? So when people ask me, when should I hire my first virtual assistant? And that's not how people typically say it. But like, when should you hire your first virtual assistant? It's now. When is now the right time? Because if you don't have a remote team member, AKA virtual assistant yet, you have to stay competitive. It's evolve or die. Because what's the NARPM financial benchmark?
Yeah, some key stats for that. One, the most successful, profitable property management companies out there, 2/3 of their staff are remote team members. 6+ of their staff are remote team members.
Yeah, that's, as you can see, right? Like, you can look at profit in different ways. And if you want to be competitive on your expense side, you have to be starting to build your team of remote team members. Let's look at some of the things that people need to think about when they're hiring a remote team member. The first one I think that is the most important is that most people, when they hire first, they think that their virtual assistant needs to be doing the grunt work.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Grunt work.
Yeah.
Like, actually, that was the term that I heard a few times at a conference I just spoke at. And people weren't saying it to be mean, but it was just like, okay, they need to do this stuff so I can do these things. And I've been able to experience over the years the power of hiring someone that owns the outcome that just happens to be in another country.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It's so true. I talk to so many property management companies. Grunt work is one way to put it, or just admin, back office, or what I always hear a lot is, I'll never trust them to talk to my clients, or maybe even I'll never trust them to talk to my tenants or vendors.
Yeah.
It is a extremely limiting belief. Really the whole point and success of hiring remote. Because honestly, if that's your mindset, like pretty soon, those jobs won't need team members at all. The grunt work is largely going to be done by AI or process automation or other tools.
How do we help people change that mindset though?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I always say is the United States has not cornered the market on HR. But as a matter of fact, the irony in that mindset is this equation has actually been flipped on its head. In pretty much every job market across the country now, it is extremely challenging to hire the level of talent you want to hire domestically. So the reality is it's actually easier to hire higher level talent overseas than it is to hire it in your own market, which if you think about it makes a lot of sense, because even if you're in a relatively large city of say 1 million people, it's still just 1 million people. And how many of them are even looking for jobs at any given time? 5%, right? And so then you only have so many thousands of people that are looking for a job. How many of those are really qualified and employable for the job that you happen to have available, right? So you have this extremely small subset. And then of the ones, like, can you afford them? You might have to pay 6 figures, right, to hire some of these people to do the jobs you want to do. Versus if you want to hire globally, now you open the marketplace up to millions of people looking for a job. And these are people who, a lot of them have master's degrees, their English is fantastic, the skill sets are there.
Yeah, but like, how are you going to find somebody that has property management experience in another country?
Okay, great. So this is a question we said we're going to get into. I'm excited to talk to you about this. My opinion, because this always comes up, right? Every time I talk, I want them to have property management experience, or even more, right? I want them to have this specific software experience. But the reality is, for the right talent that you're looking for, learning the technical part of the job is actually the easiest part. So in general, I don't place a premium on experience or even on a specific software. So to me, the premium is on the soft skills, right? The culture fit, right? And so are they going to have the right mindset, the right attitude? Are they a lifelong learner? Are they going to be able to be self-taught and self-managing? Are they going to have a service-based attitude of wanting to be helpful and serve others? Those are the things that we really value a lot.
I hear you and I agree, but it sounds like a lot of fluff. But what more specifically could you be looking at as far as like those soft skills or culture fit? Like, how would somebody watching this video be able to like take that information and make it connect with them?
Yeah, this is where there's like an art and a science, right? Here at Berube, we have a full team of recruiters and HR professionals. This is how they make their skills life. This is all they've been doing forever. And so there's a way to look and test for these things through some of the things you're going to be looking at in terms of their past experience. Not to say they need to have industry-specific experience, but do they have lateral relevant experience where they've been in a position to serve clients or serve other people, and ask them the right questions about that type of experience. How have they managed other people or managed clients before? Things like that. But then also just the way you're going to be conducting your interviews and listening for, first of all, it has to start with, do you yourself have good core values, right? And then you always want to be hiring based on your core values as a company, right? And listening for the ways that they're communicating. Are they communicating back to you what your core values are without you directing them in those questions?
But I don't have core values. I have 75 properties. Like, I'm in the weeds. I need to hire somebody. I don't have a culture. I don't even know what you mean by soft skills.
Yeah, the reality is you do have a culture, you do have core values, even if you don't know what they are. And I get it. If you don't have the time to go through a formal process to unpack all of what that means, you need to at least reflect on it a little bit to understand what are the things that I value and make me tick. Some simple questions to ask yourself to understand that is, when your clients give you positive feedback, what exactly are they saying? What exactly are they saying that you as a company do well? And even without knowing that, like, even just go and look at your Google reviews, right? Of the five-star Google reviews, what themes can you start to see where you're getting positive feedback from your clients? Same kind of thing, like, even if you only have 1 or 2 staff people right now, what are they saying about why do they like working here? What do they like about working here? So even if you're not going to go through some formal process, which we take all of our clients through coaching and consulting, you can just pause and reflect on that a little bit and get some basic understanding.
So what you're saying is, like, first, what are your clients saying about you? And if you have Google reviews online, you can look at that. Yep. Or if you have other information or just recollection, what are the other people that are working with you saying?
Referral partners, same type of thing. If you have realtor referrals or anybody that refers business to you, why are they referring it to you versus somebody else?
And then also even self-reflection, right? It's
absolutely.
Who am I?
Yeah.
What are my standards? How do I communicate with other people? Who would not like to be around me?
Yeah.
Who would hate me?
Yes, or for everybody.
No, absolutely not. And that's a really good point then as to how not to specifically hire for previous experience first.
Yeah.
And that, who knows, that might even be unique to property management. I don't know. But for our intents and purposes, I think that it is very important. So what about pay? I feel badly if I'm paying somebody $9 an hour in another country. It's just, I have this guilt.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots we could say about pay here. So let me address that question first, right? Which is my goal every time I hire somebody remotely or when we place somebody with our clients is we want that remote team member to be earning middle class to even upper middle class wages in their home country. And so yeah, it's important to understand the country you're hiring in, even the city that you're hiring in, because whether you're hiring in a big city versus someplace a little more rural can have some variance to it. But you want them to be paid well so that this job can provide for their family. They don't feel the need or the burden to be looking for a second job, right? Because that's a lose scenario.
But what about if I overpay them?
Yeah, overpaying is really not good for you or for them. Because number one, obviously you don't need to be overpaying, right? That's going to hamstring your profitability. But also you actually limit their future career path, right? They want to have a path and a ladder where they can continue to grow with you, right? And so if you overpay right out of the gate or too early, too soon, then what are you going to do in the future? 2 years from now when they're doing really well? Now, that being said, there's a little caveat, which is I always say it's hard to overpay A-plus players, right? So somebody is a great culture fit, the absolute great skill set for the job that they need, and it's obvious that they can continue to advance in your company in a meaningful way. I wouldn't overthink too much the overpaying thing. It's hard to overpay those people.
If you had to choose just one thing, one soft skill, one most important piece that you're looking for when you're hiring someone, you tell me what yours is, then I'll tell you what mine is.
Mine, easy, lifelong learner. Yeah, lifelong learner. Because, and here's why. Number one, it's just a value of my own, right? I love constantly learning new things. Sometimes they're just obscure random things. Sometimes they're industry things, whatever. But I love learning. I'm very attracted to people that also like learning. But it has a really practical element to it too, which is businesses our size here at Better Who and for the typical property management company, no matter how big you are as a property management company, you're a small business. You're not corporate America. And so you don't have some fancy, great training program with all these bells and whistles where you can take somebody through this real formal classroom style and shadowing style training process, right? So no matter how great your training process is, you're always going to be relying on this person to be a self-starter and to own the outcome on their own training, right? One thing that just drives me nuts is when we have staff folks who are like, oh yeah, I don't know how to do that because nobody's trained me yet. Whoa. Stop this conversation right now. Look, that may be a true statement. I'm not trying to invalidate what you're saying, but you have to own the outcome on that. Who did you ask? What did you do to try to solve this problem, to get your own training accomplished?
I'd like them to work for our competitors.
Yeah, exactly.
I see another advantage to the lifelong learner as well. I know I do this, and I may have learned this from you.
I won't let it go to my head.
You will.
Okay.
Even just the possibility. But I want people to make mistakes.
Oh yeah.
I never used to want that, but I've learned, and I've put this into practice with our coaching clients. And I'm like, look, let them make a mistake. Let them know they have the permission to make a mistake for a number of reasons. But just one of those reasons, so they don't come ask you for the answers all the time. Yep. Because they're afraid to make mistakes. Yes. Being afraid to make mistakes is so much worse than someone actually making a mistake. Now, if they make a mistake and they're a lifelong learner,
yeah, absolutely,
then that's what I do when I'm excited.
I know this.
So, yeah, if they are a lifelong learner, then guess what? They're going to learn from their mistake and hopefully don't make that again. But wouldn't you say that, actually, this is rhetorical, like when we make a mistake, that's when we're able to learn.
Oh, there's no better way to learn than that, right? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I would say, I learned this from you too. And these are the only two things I've ever learned from
Ever.
you.
Got it. All right.
And I don't even, you probably remember it, but I use it a lot, just not around you. The give a shit factor.
Yeah.
Like, I want someone that cares. And of course, like, it's on you as the business owner too, for them to want to care. But at the same time, like, you've seen them, there's people out there, lots of them, that don't really care about their job. They don't care about doing good work. They don't care about the outcome. And of course, you have to provide them to have the buy-in as to the why we're doing this thing, right? And when they have that buy-in and they care, they give a shit, and they care about how one thing affects another and another and another, and the team, that is super powerful. So lifelong learner and give a shit factor. You heard it here first.
Totally true. And look, nobody's gonna care as much as the business owner, right? It's not like that has to be the standard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has to be very high, invested in the company's success, understanding that when the company's successful, we're all successful, place a lot of value there. I want to circle back around to what I call appetite for mistakes. It's the opposite of micromanagement, right? My contention is you cannot scale if you don't have an appetite for mistakes. Can't do it. Can't do it. Because when you don't have that appetite for mistakes, what you're doing instead is it's just easier if I do it myself person. You're the micromanager. You're hovering over that so that the mistake can't happen. Or like you said, you're beating them up to the point that they will never dare make a decision that could be a mistake again, which means you're inherently getting sucked into the weeds and you can't scale when those things are happening.
And historically, these are the main reasons why when people do hire global talent, right, remote team members, they have leaned into hiring virtual assistants because they don't want people that make mistakes. They want people that can follow a checklist, right? But why not have somebody that can create that checklist and create the rest of the systems around that and in the company? And when somebody owns the outcome, owns the checklist, owns the process, that's when the real power comes in. Unfortunately, most business owners don't get to experience that because you haven't experienced what you haven't experienced yet. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's one of the other things that you would say is super important for people that have not hired a remote team member that they need to know?
I guess I'd want to focus in a little bit on the last comment you made. In a way, it circles back around to this mindset around what can these folks do for you. I started first hiring remote team members in 2011. And at the time, I was paying people $1 an hour in India to do research for me on investment properties. And it checked a box and it got my toe in the waters, right? But imagine if that's all I was still doing. And I get it that even up to, say, 5 years ago, that was still very much the prevailing idea of what is out there. But yeah, I really want to drive home that point that you and I can be replaced by remote team members. Everybody at every level in an organization can be replaced by remote team members, right? If you want that. And so there's no ceiling, there's no limit, there's no capacity to what the skill levels are and what the qualifications are. And so really broadening your horizon big time in that way will open up a world of possibilities.
A couple of other limitations of hiring a VA opposed to a remote team member is that you're asking yourself a question, do I have enough for them to do?
Oh yeah.
I can't hire somebody. I don't have enough for them to do. That is definitely thinking about a task doer. And then also having the pressure to be thinking about, like when you talked about the person in India that you're paying $1 an hour to, it's okay, what next? What do I need to give this person next? That's pressure. And I hear that from some smaller business owners that we coach that may have hired a VA previous to working with us in the coaching capacity. And it's, what do I give this person to do next? I got to keep their plate full, right? There's this tremendous pressure. And
some of that may be created, like you said, about you don't know what you don't know. So if you're only experienced, because for a lot of the folks we talk to, they've hired VAs before, right?
Yeah.
And this is all that they did for them. And they hit a ceiling, right? It's all that they would do or could do, right? Because you can hire VAs in that way that do have that ceiling. And especially if you're only going to manage them that way, but even if you're not, they might have that ceiling. And so if that's all you've ever known, and then you think that's all that's possible, then yeah, that's really going to reinforce your limited mindset. And so then you get to this question of, I can't keep them busy because in your experience and in your mind, it's, I know all they can really do is this back office stuff, right? And so it could be that if that's the way in which you've hired VAs in the past, you need to not hire them that way again. Because there is a way that you could do it that way, but there's a different way you can hire remote team members to get that truly global talent that's out there. And then if you do that, then the sky's the limit. There's nothing that they can't do. And so like a lot of time, what I always say to that question is, I say, if I'm talking to a business owner, I say, one thing I already know about you, just by virtue of the fact that you're an entrepreneur, is you have 10 new ideas every single day and not enough time to implement them. And then the light bulb usually goes off for people. They're like, yeah, you're right.
So,
it is true.
So what I want to challenge you now, I don't care about what you say, okay? But what I do care about is I'm a property manager. I have 150 doors. I don't know what to do, where to start, like any of this stuff, right? What would you do if you were in my office with me, on the side of me, to help me figure out how do I incorporate a remote team member into my business? Where do I even start? How would you help me think through this?
Yeah, super simple. It's the same answer for everybody. I would ask everybody that's on your team now, you included, and any other staff you currently have in place, is I would say, write your own job description. Start there, because a lot of times we think we know what we do or what other people do because we maybe had an idea of it even 6 months ago or a year ago, but job descriptions naturally morph and change over time in ways that we don't always know what's going on. So I'd start there. I'd say, okay, what do you do? And then be open to be surprised. Be like, oh, wait, you do that? I didn't know you were doing that. So do that.
Yeah, actually, so I'm going to interrupt you. I hope you can pick back up on that.
Got it.
All right. You can also, another benefit of that is you'll also identify redundancies.
Absolutely.
Just going through that practice.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You may find two people are both say they're doing the same thing. And we're like, wait, why? Oh, I'm doing this part, I'm doing this. Okay, wait, why? Yeah. So be curious, allow people to really express themselves through that. And then as you go through those job descriptions, I would ask people to grade the different things that they're doing. And I use a grid, right? And so there's skill and passion, right? And we know this is where your superpowers lie, where your skill meets your passion, right? So that's okay, great. Of all the things you're doing, where do you have skills around that? Where do you not have skills around that? And what do you love doing? And what do you not love doing? And so then you'll start to see, okay, if anybody is doing some things where they don't have passion, then that needs to come off of their job description as quickly as it can. And if they don't have skill, then that's a question mark, right? It's okay. Do you want the skill for that? Is it just a training issue? Or do we need to get that off your job description as well? It's always, and this is a constant thing you have to constantly check it back into your team. It's a constant refinement for everybody to be going deeper and deeper to where their skills and passions meet, because that's just where the magic happens. It's where you're gonna inherently be, even if you don't do any other process improvements or anything else, people are just gonna naturally be much more efficient and talented and take your company a lot farther, even if this is all you do, okay? But when you start to identify the different things people are doing that they shouldn't be doing, then you start to identify, okay, do I have somebody else on the team now that should be doing some of those things? And then you'll eventually have a job description of what you need to hire for next.
Great, that's a great way to come in and figure out the job description. But I've never hired a remote team member before, and like, how are they gonna fit into my culture? I don't know what else to do. How am I even going to pay them? Yeah, so anytime you're hiring a remote team member, there's 3 basic options out there, right? You could go to a staffing agency, you could DIY it, or you could go to a headhunter, which is effectively what we do here at Better Who. My team, they're not going to be able to work with a remote team member.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is...
They can't work with a VA. What, do I get to keep them up on a screen the whole time?
Okay. This is great. I run into this a lot, right? And this goes into a whole separate category, and we may do a whole separate video on just this at some point on change management.
Yeah.
Okay. So a business owner a lot of times may recognize and understand, okay, I hear you, Jay. I heard Matt say earlier, 67% of my staff should be remote team members. I should have 6+ remote team members on my team. I know I'm going to be much more profitable, efficient, effective with remote team members. I want to make that change. My team will never buy in.
I don't want to rock the boat.
I don't want to rock the boat. Or, yeah, you don't understand. My whole team, we've worked together. My least tenured person has been here for 10 years. And so this is a good thing. This is a good problem to have in the sense that, like, congratulations, you clearly have a great culture currently where everybody is buying into that and you guys like working together. You probably feel like family at that point, and it would be outside of your mind that you would ever think of letting any one of them go. right? They probably come to your kids' birthday parties and stuff, right? So it's a challenge, change management, when this happens. But at the end of the day, you have a duty and a responsibility to your business, right? And this is why you get paid the big bucks, so to speak. You got to make tough decisions sometimes. So change management starts with talking to your team and trying to sell them on the idea of what needs to happen next. Why is it good for the business? Why is it good for them, right? And you hope over time, with some time, experience, training, that they'll buy into this, right? And that may be a process, it may take some time. But at the end of the day, you may have some people that won't buy into the change. And this doesn't, and at this point, I'm not only just talking about remote team members. I'm talking about any change you want to make.
Yeah.
There's a whole host of things, because your business is constantly changing. If all you ever did is the same way you did it 10 years ago, good luck.
Yeah.
That's not going to work.
What I see happening is that when there's a lack of clarity around what people are doing at times, right? Like, you feel like sometimes things are out of control, right? I know that a lot of business owners can feel that way. And when that happens, our confidence shrinks. And you just feel like you're constantly reacting. And if you make any of the wrong decisions, then everything's going to fall apart. And then you overvalue your individual team members when even some of them you've had a sneaking suspicion that like they're not really doing that great of a job. So if you take a step back, slowing down to speed up, we talk about that. If you take a step back, you slow down, you really think, okay, am I confident in my role? And am I confident as a leader? Can I make confident decisions that I can trust and be able to communicate this to my team and be okay with the conversation? Because a hard conversation might be had. But it's okay to have those hard conversations, because that just means that you have now two, hopefully intelligent people that are now communicating and trying to find the best way forward. And I know that, like, working with you, we push back on each other. And look, I didn't always push back. I used to like just retract until I learned, not from Matthew, okay, maybe partially from Matthew, but from my wife, Jessica, that confrontation is a healthy thing. It's good to push back and to communicate, right? Like, it's just healthy. But relating back to being a confident leader is going to be able to think about what is good for the business, because that's what this is all about. Like, you said the entrepreneurial journey, right? You started the journey in order to have this freedom, in order to build this vehicle that's going to be able to get you there. And in order to do that, you just got to keep it dialing back to the business. It's just logic.
Yeah, if you have a team that's not buying into your vision, one of the things that comes to mind for me here is what that healthy leadership looks like. And anybody that's heard me talk over the years has heard me say this before, but it's worth repeating, which is a lot of leaders either abdicate or micromanage, right? And there's a healthy middle ground there of healthy leadership and delegation. And so if you have a team that doesn't buy into change, and look, all teams resist change, I get that. But at the end of the day, if they don't follow your leadership, you probably need to do a little soul searching. You probably have been abdicating. And you might have to circle back to your team and maybe ask for an apology.
And what is abdicate? What is abdicating?
Yes, abdication basically means, and I've made this mistake, okay? And so it's this laissez-faire management style where you just think, I'm going to hire A players, they're going to know what to do, they're going to solve the problems, and as long as I stay out of their way, they're going to figure it out. And that works to a certain degree, right? Like, you can get pretty far with that, right? But you've essentially handed over the keys to the kingdom. Right, you're no longer in control of the business. And what I've learned is that truly A players, they actually want vision, direction, training, delegation, right? They want feedback. They want to know, am I on track? And so being able to show up as a healthy leader and say, hey guys, we're at point A, we're going to point B, here's what success looks like, here's how we'll know when we get there, here's some of the checkpoints along the way that we'll know we're on the right track. Now, you can go figure out the details of how to get us there. That's good delegation, right? Versus abdication is something a lot less than that. It's more just, yeah, like, I think this is where we want to go. What do you guys think? And they're like, yeah, okay, I agree. And then you're really just letting them just take it from there, right?
Yeah, I find myself checking in, depending on the day, month, or year, whether I'm abdicating too much, right? Because it's not black or white. These are just things that happen, that we fall into these traps depending on where we are in our business or just in our life, because our life affects our business. But sometimes I'm abdicating. Sometimes I lean into that micromanaging, or I'll overstep. And you've seen this before. I'll be like, no, we need to do this way. And I'll be like, oh, I got to take a step back and not jump on that, because I need to be able to let that person grow. So having that awareness, I think, is super important for a leader. I was going to say a business owner, then I was going to say a manager. And I'm like, no, it's leadership. Yeah. And really, it comes down to effective leadership, right? Like, business owners, you're leaders, you're coaches. And running a property management business isn't easy. So let's free up some of that leverage. Don't hire a VA, but hire a remote team member, somebody that can own the outcome. Until next time, subscribe, follow us. Peace.